Hey everybody, Zach Primrose here from Primrose Productions Music. I have another video for you today. Today we're going to be talking about how to mic a drum set. And I'm going to show you first the simplest setup and then a slightly bigger setup. And it's basically just, it comes down to how many inputs you have available and how many microphones you have. And you can do any combination of these things, and there's like a couple really specific points that you need to stick to, and after that it's more experimentation than anything else. So I'm going to show you the drums and setup real quick. So first, as you can see here in the kick drum, we have an AKG D112. This is a large diaphragm dynamic microphone. It takes high SPL levels really well, and it picks up more low frequencies than smaller diaphragm ones. So it's really good for things like kick drum. Where we have it positioned now, we're kind of in the middle of the kick drum, like dead center between the two heads. If you want more of an attack on your kick drum, you're going to move it closer to the batter head, so it's closer to the beaters. If you want more of a tone, you're going to move it back towards the resonant head more, and you'll pick up more of the sound of the drum overall. Now, outside the drum here, we have my own homemade little sub kick. If you know what a Yamaha sub kick is, they were in production for a while and they were really great, and now they don't make them anymore and they're really hard to find any that are cheap. So I just made one because basically what a sub kick is just a speaker that's rigged to be a microphone. And what this does is it picks up some of the really extra low frequencies. It basically acts like a really big diaphragm microphone. So it's really good for those sub lows in the kick drum. Now, this is not necessary for drums, really. It's just nice to have it if you can. If you don't have this available or something like it available and you can't build one, then something like the D112 is fine. So now we're going to move on to the snare drum. We're using a really basic snare setup on this. We're miking the top head and the bottom head with a Shure SM57. This is standard in most things. Now I have both of these mics set about an inch away from the heads. You want to give a little bit of space just so it doesn't clip. And there's a couple really important things to remember when miking the snare drum though. You want to utilize the cardioid polar pattern in these microphones, which is to say that you want to point the back of the microphone at the things you don't want the mic to pick up. In this case, we have the back of the top microphone angled as much as we can towards the hi-hat and the cymbal above it, and that way we get mostly snare sound and minimize the hi-hat and cymbal bleed. On the bottom mic, we're doing the same thing but with the kick drum. We have the back of the mic pointed as much as we can towards the kick drum, so it rejects that kick drum sound and focuses just on the snare sound. The other important thing to remember here is that these microphones are facing opposite from each other. One's pointed down, one's pointed up at the same sound source. So their phase is going to be opposite and cancel each other out. To avoid this, you need to invert the phase on the bottom microphone. Now we're going to move on to the toms. On all of the toms here, we're using Sennheiser MD421s. And this is a classic tom microphone. And I like the sound of them. They are a little expensive, so if you don't have these available, then I would go for just more SM57s. I think in another video I'll show you that SM57s will work fine for pretty much any application throughout this whole setup. But yeah, if you have MD421s available for the toms, that's great. If not, 57s. And the same principles apply as with the snare. You want to use the back of the microphone to your advantage. You want to point that at the cymbal so it rejects the cymbal sound and focuses just on the tom sound. And again, you want it about an inch from the head, and you could point it more towards the center of the tom if you want more attack, and more towards the edge of the tom if you want more of the tone of the tom itself. And then we go on to the overheads. We're using a pair of really cheap pencil condensers. They're MXL 991s. And we're using this little clip from Wilkinson Audio that allows us to use a single mic stand for both of these microphones, so we can get them in a really tight XY pattern. This minimizes phase cancellation issues, and it's a really simple way to mic overheads. and it just picks up all the cymbals and the whole kit at once, and it's a really good workaround. Now we're gonna move on to the fun stuff. What I showed you there, other than the sub kick, the main kick mic, the inner kick mic, the top and bottom snare, one mic for each of the toms, and the pair of stereo overheads. Those are your bare minimum for miking drums. All right? If all you have is 8 inputs, that's what you're gonna do. 1 through 8 is the kick drum, snare top and bottom, tom 1, tom 2, tom 3, and overhead left and right. Now, if you have more inputs available and more microphones, another option for you is to add room mics. Now, this might not be a good idea depending on your room. If you have absolutely zero treatment, it wouldn't be a good idea. If your room is super, super small, probably not the best idea. You can kind of fake a room tone in post later. But if you have the space for room mics and you have the extra microphones and inputs available, I'd recommend doing this. And I'll show you ways you can experiment with that. All right, the first set of room mics we have here it's another stereo pair. One's pan left, one's pan right, just like the overheads. And these are the other ones that actually came with those pencil condensers, but these are large diaphragm condensers. They're the MXL 990s, and they're not the best sounding microphone. They're okay, especially for the price range. But for a room mic, that's okay. They can just be a really trashy drum room sound. We'll just smash them with a compressor, and we'll mix that in, and it'll add a nice bit of flavor. Now, the main room mic I have going on here is this mic here. It's the Aventone CV12. I like to have this level with just about the top of the kick drum, and I put it back about 4 feet or maybe 5 feet and point it straight at the kit. This gives a nice wide image of the entire kit in one shot, and the microphone is also, it's a fantastic sounding microphone, so it does a really good job in general. But then throw a compressor on it and it just makes it sound wonderful. Now, the last mic in our setup is something a little interesting. I figured this out one day, just like I said, I was messing around. I was trying something new. I had been recording guitar, and I had my guitar cab out where I normally record guitar, and I had a mic on it. I normally use the Sennheiser E906, and I was recording, and then we had to move to drums. And so I started switching things out for the drum setup, and then I thought, it'd be kind of fun to see what would happen if we used that as a room mic. So I took the microphone and I moved it from the front of the speaker to the back of the speaker, and now it's just catching the reflections in the room off of the back of the cabinet. And this is fun just because it's wooden, it's picking up certain frequencies and resonating with them, and it just gives a really unique sound to the room tone. And again, just like the other room mics, you're going to compress the crap out of it and mix it in with everything. And yeah, so that's the basic drum setup. Now, I'm going to show you what this setup is going to sound like. Again, it's a really simple setup. I have my buddy Derek from Dead Electric Forecast playing on the kit, and let's hear him play. So there you go, real simple drum setup. We get a good sound out of it, and that's all there is to it. So if you like this video, if you could hit the subscribe button, that would be awesome. If you could hit that little notification bell, that'd be great. And I'd love to hear from you in the comments. Anything you guys want to see in the future, let me know and I will try to cover it. So thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.